discussion about rejiggering the testnet milestones. So, Rao, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Awesome.
Share my screen.
I'll turn it over.
So, as the members know, we're still in Sprint 36, so it's the same focus, and we've been working on a couple of main bugs that have been taking us quite a while to track down and see what was going on. The one in Genesis ceremony with the required signatures being greater than 0, we were getting long long delays. So there is some progress in there to resolve that, and then the solution or the proposal to resolve that is being currently reviewed. The other one is long proposed times is the other one that was taking us quite a bit of time on that. And there we completed the instrumentation and dashboards we need to be able to investigate the reasons. Basically, we're doing a very systematic, methodical investigation to say what is happening with one validator, with more validators, as well as with different types of contracts, simple contracts, and contracts that have a certain type of recursion and another type of recursion. So we're in the process of collecting that information. So we should be we should be able to, on both of these issues, we should be able to get to the basic issues and resolve them relatively quickly. The registry related, peak and registry related things are in the almost ready to be merged. They're in the review stage at this point in time. And the cost accounting, which is the one big bucket of features that we need to implement, we completed the ticketing of that. And where we are now is to look at how we can increase or move some of the resources over to that task. So that we have as quick a delivery as possible on that. The other thing that was, we have shown the validator bonding demo last time, and we're making progress on the validator rewards and slashing. Specifically, we have the slashing pieces beginning to be tested at this point in time. And this relates to the reconfiguration of the testnet scenarios that Greg mentioned. Greg, did you want to go over that, or did you want me to go over the reconfiguration?
I mean, since you've started, go ahead and carry on. Sounds good.
Yeah. So basically, when we were thinking about this before, there was a thought that we will have testnet 3 and then testnet 4. And testnet 4, when we looked at the feature list, primarily it was validator slashing related feature list. So that, since we're already in test on that piece now, we feel comfortable that we should be able to conclude that by the time other items are ready for testnet. So for that reason, rather than have a testnet 4 separately, we kind of compress that in all of that into testnet 3. The one other thing about testnet 4, back in April, I think a decision was made that that initially for any significant changes to the mainnet would be a fork. So that was the other item. I think in the documentation somehow that was not caught, and it was still staying there as a testnet 4 item. But that's something in the review in the last few days. We recognized that it was actually a decision made back in April that that's not going, that is how it's going to be, that it'll be a fork initially. So with that, basically the two items that were separately listed for testnet 4 have gone away, the validator slashing and this forking or not item. So we kind of moved, we're basically now saying slashing should be ready by the time all the other things are ready for testnet 3. So we only need testnet 3. That's kind of the situation there. And then we have started launch planning. Last time I talked about, last week I talked about the fact that we started looking at the mainnet infrastructure planning. And this launch planning is basically bigger than that, to really look at what are all the loose ends, what are all the decisions we need to make, and get in place resolve those loose ends, and then have a complete test plan, launch plan, so that we have a secure net coming up. So this once we're done with that, it will also identify for us anything that we need to emphasize on from a security audit or hardening perspective, as we kind of look at the totality of, are we ready? If we were to go to launch tomorrow, are we ready? And what are the items that we're still missing here? So that's the kind of thinking that our planning that has started. We'll probably have a couple of iterations of that, but we should have something soon on having at least the first version of that documented. So that's on the reconfiguration of the test nets and the launch plan part of it, and the features. Many of the other features are basically continuing development in the, like I said, parts of the registry is almost ready to be completed. It's in the final review. The testing, like we said, now we're basically making these long tests go parallel, especially with the systematic method. We should be able to do multiple of those scenarios simultaneously, and then get to results quickly to resolve the issues that are still bogging us down. The Chinese community testing continues. And I think in the last week I mentioned that we ran a whole, some 300, 400 contracts against the sandbox. And we have identified, or some of them have identified issues. So this week it has been temporarily slow, but hopefully once we do the next release again, we can do more of that suite of tests and sort of use it as a regression also, and to identify any new bugs that might be there. So all the other activity around optimization and bug fixes is ongoing, as well as we are documenting I guess the interface and the procedures for any third party, like a wallet provider, to work with us. So that's that piece again is almost close to complete, that particular documentation. So that's where we are. Are there any questions on any of the tech update?
Hey, Ralph, thank you for that. Did you say at the end that there's documentation almost done for implementing a wallet?
No, not for implementing a wallet. To communicate with third parties the kind of information we need. Basically, I'm referring to the work you and Chris are doing. If you want to elaborate on that, Ned, go ahead, speak to that.
No, that's okay. But I think I'd like to connect with you after this meeting. And
okay.
Okay. Thanks, Ralph. I appreciate it.
All right. Anything else on this on the tech update?
Thank you, Rao. It was a good update. I'm glad you covered the testnet milestone reconfiguration. That was good. You know, I hope that we'll be able to utilize that extra milestone as a hardening time on the network. So we'll go straight from testnet 3 into hardening, and then to mainnet, which is awesome. Really glad to hear that. So moving on, I have a little bit of information. I'll just quickly point out, but we can have discussion. The Q1 quarterlies are posted, and Q2 quarterlies will follow shortly after that. But we can talk about the quarterlies in the closed door session on Friday. Likewise, I was able to speak with council yesterday, and we have a follow-up discussion today. But essentially, the reason, just to let people know, I don't want a lot of discussion about this on this call, but just to let people know why it was marked confidential. If we pass the document off to membership, and then membership, as they seem to have a habit of doing, pass the documentation off to third parties, then that eliminates the possibility of attorney-client privilege on that document. And we would like to keep that privilege. So because of that, we want to follow advice of counsel on this. We will, I've been given guidance on what we can do in terms of providing a redacted document. So we can do that. Essentially, there's a summary at the top of the document, so we can provide a form of the document that just has the summary and everything else is redacted. And so that will we'll make sure that that's available to the membership. But I do hope that everyone understands why council felt it was a good idea to keep intact attorney-client privilege on documentations like this. So any sort of brief questions on these things? I'm not going to get into an extended discussion here in this call, but we'll have a more extensive discussion on the community, the closed door session. Okay, all right. I'll take silence as golden. And the next piece is...
Wait, Greg, I have a
Yes.
quick question.
Sure.
About something you mentioned, I think, last week. You said something about that the ROC to Rev is 1-to-1.
That's correct.
The maximum of revs will be the maximum
800 million. 800 million ROC.
Okay, so it's no longer 1.1 billion.
No, because we burned the other amount, right? And then there's a provision, a board resolution that allows for issuance post mainnet launch, and that's also governed by IOV5.
Right, but so I'm confused now. So what's the maximum of rev like that is possible?
Okay, so let's we need to understand that there's a time function here. The maximum of rev possible at the time of mainnet launch is 800 million.
So post mainnet.
Post mainnet, it can only grow to 10%. If I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if I recall correctly, it can only grow to 10% of the total.
So another 80 million.
That's correct.
Okay, so I don't think that's like written anywhere.
I think it is. I think it is written in the board resolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if someone here can post it on the Discord, that would be great.
I mean, it's in the board minutes from, I want to say, April of 2017.
Okay, I'll try and find it.
Okay,
Thanks.
cool. It might be May of 2017. But again, my argument is that those supplies are not sufficient because otherwise we run into all kinds of issues with arithmetic problems in the calculations, in arithmetic calculations. So you need a supply that actually matches reasonable transaction volumes. So if our target is to be an economy the size of California, we would need a much, much larger supply. Okay, so moving on. As of today, it looks like we will be extending an offer to a program manager candidate or project manager candidate. And I won't say more until the offer letter is out the door, but that is in the works. And likewise, we'll be extending an offer letter to a developer who has passed interviews. So we're very excited about both of those additions to the team. And I think that's all the updates I have. Any questions about anything? Okay, I would encourage everyone to listen to the latest RCast. Some cool stuff there, and yeah, see you guys next week.
Just wanted to add that the nominations for board of directors and IOBs are still open.
Oh, that's correct. Thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right. Thank you. I forgot about that.
All right, IOBs stay open until September 15th. And for director nominees, application deadline is now September 8th.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And I think we were, Bill, did you want to plug that we're still looking for technical writers?
Yeah, the candidate pool for technical documentation specialists is building, and there are some that are being spoken with. But if anybody knows a competent software technical writer, don't be shy in putting their name forward or having them submit a resume. And the link is in the announcements within Discord.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for everyone, and see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Ciao.